Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Joseph Fountain here. Thanks for joining. And today I want to talk to you guys about Robinhood and this new checking and savings thing that they have coming up. Awesome. So if you're new to this channel, I typically talk about money, but I try to talk about it in a way that people can understand it by sharing tips on investing, sharing tools and things that people can use that they may not be aware of, just to help the average person do better in finances. So I waited to make this video about Robinhood because when I saw the news about Robinhood having a 3% checking and savings account, I knew that there was going to be a ton of backlash. I knew people were going to have questions. People were going to be negative about this. Then you're going to have some people that are excited about this. But in the overall grand scheme of things, I just pretty much knew that there was going to be a lot of negativity, and that negativity was going to be coming from the bigwigs, the banking industry itself. So if you're not familiar with banking and interest rates, Robinhood is proposed to have checking and savings accounts that give 3% in interest. Now, what does that mean? That means if you have $100 in the bank, within that year, your $100 will make you $3. Now, to just put that in perspective, most of the banking does not offer 3% or anywhere close. You have some that are more internet-based banking, companies that offer 2%, but most banking centers and most banks, they offer, 0.01% or 0.02% or 0.2%. So basically nothing. So with Robinhood coming out that they're gonna, give you 3% on your money with no minimums and no fees and no overdrafts, right? No overdrafts. Of course, you gotta have a lot of people that start to say, well, what's the catch? The backlash has been so heavy to the point Robinhood has taken the whole checking and savings off of their website and put cash management there. So it's typical that stuff like this would happen. Now, if you know anything about the banking industry, about the investment world, anything in the realm having to do with lots and lots of money, you always know that you got to know that there's a lot of old heads and a lot of big corporations and kind of the people that just sit at the top that, they pretty much watch everything when it concerns the banking. And if you're competing or potentially pose a threat to them, then they're going to raise hell. They're going to bother you. They're going to, get in your business. They're going to, the media's going to start putting out all this stuff with a negative tone to it towards whatever it is you're doing. For example, like you've seen the government hassling Facebook. You've seen the government hassling Google. It's a reason for that. When your platform threatens something that has been in existence and has caused a lot of CEOs, a lot of people who own these companies and found these companies and their families and a lot of these government politicians, when it threatens, their livelihood to make as much money as they've been making, or to set their family legacies up, or their partnerships and and their ventures and stuff like that, then yes, you're going to get some backlash. And so with Robinhood, people have wanted to know, well, how is Robinhood going to give 3% on your money? It doesn't make any sense. So people question how Robinhood is going to give you 3%, but people do not question as much, well, how come my bank only gives me 0.01%? So with this, I'm taking this time to give you a teachable moment on the banking industry and the finance industry and how you have to be careful, especially when you're listening to the media. Understand that the traditional banking structure doesn't care for you and your family like you may think they do. That's why you get 0.01%. Meanwhile, you have CEOs that make $20 million a year, CEOs that make two or even $3 million a year. So let's take a look at one of the things that people were, questioning. Like, well, Robinhood is not a actual bank. They're a brokerage, account. They don't have any FDIC, insurance. They're not federally insured like with the FDIC. Now, if you don't know what that is, then I'll put the definition on the screen so you can read through that at your own time. So what Robinhood has is they have SIPC. They're SIPC insured. Now, there is a difference because, FDIC insured means, they insure banks, but Robinhood does not have that insurance because they're not technically a bank or as of yet, they're not considered as a bank. We don't really know. Robinhood's a private company, so all of their information is not out there in the public. So you really do not know what their plans are behind the scenes. But this is just an announcement that they made about having checking and savings. Now, is there really a big difference between the two? Just a little bit, but as a consumer and someone that, who is, putting your money into a system, you want to know that your money is going to be insured, and basically, yes, your money would be insured. So you have the amount of money that, will actually be covered in case something happened to that particular bank, which is, pretty much standard for most banks as well as brokerages. So is there anything really to worry about concerning that? The answer really is no. But once again, if you're listening to the media will make it such a big deal. And the reason why it seems like a big deal is because most people do not know about this stuff or know about banking, but you can just Google this stuff and learn about it. So in no shape or form am I necessarily defending Robinhood or going against Robinhood. I'm just pointing out the fact that this is the things that kind of happen. Now, if Robinhood opens up a checking or savings or some type of account that gets you 3%, then yes, there's a lot of people that's going to buy in. I don't know about you, but I definitely would put money in to just sit and make 3% off of it versus the money that you may have sitting to the side for investments, or even if you're saving, that's only getting, you 0.1%. Now, of course, you want things to be legit, but that does not seem to be the problem with Robinhood. But in the media, you see them questioning like, well, how are they going to get people so much money? Is it like, are they going to do like a Ponzi scheme and stuff like that? Those words that are put out there is just negativity because, like I said, Robinhood threatens the structure of the traditional banking. Not just alone their name, Robinhood, which we know who Robinhood is, right? Robinhood steals from the rich and gives to the poor. So Robinhood is not only offering these checking and savings, but if you're familiar with Robinhood, you know that they have a zero fee for trades. If you want to invest, you can actually invest through Robinhood and not have to pay like a fee in order to make those investments, which normally for a lot of the old companies you would have to pay a $5, $7, and even $10 fee just to make one investment. So Robinhood is just an example of what's happening. They're not the only company that offers the free trades. You have other companies out here that are offering the same thing. And the reason is because, now in days as technology has advanced and as, things are being more exposed, people start to find out that, some of these fees are just unnecessary for the most part. But those fees have been used to make companies billions and trillions of dollars over the years. So if you start to infiltrate into something that has brought a significant cash flow to a group of people who love to just make money and they're greedy. They're not, see, one of the things we gotta understand is that, the old structures and the way things have been in America, that, a lot of these people that sit at the top and even in government, they don't necessarily care about you as a person. They care about themselves. They care about their colleagues. They care about their businesses and their connections, etc. So now here you come with your idea that's going to help the average person to be more successful financially, as well as be able to make money and start to be able to get some of those benefits that were normally behind the screen, behind the veil that most people didn't have access to. Now you're giving them access. Yes, you're going to make some people upset. And pretty much that's what happens with Robinhood on this past week. I mean, it's only been like 3 or 4 days and they've already changed it from checking and savings to just saying cash management, because now they have to go in the back and do some work. And I don't think they're afraid of anything. I just think they just don't really feel like dealing with the backlash. But I'm pretty sure they were prepared and they probably understood that there was going to be some people raising eyebrows, and they weren't going to let them just come in the banking industry easy. Now, the thing is that, Robinhood isn't the only company that started to get into banking. Capital One recently started to get into banking. A lot of these brokerage accounts that are offering free trades and etc., they're going into banking as well. They want that business and they want to offer that. And they kind of have more of a model where they're more concerned about the consumer than their personal sales and just making a whole bunch of money, which in that banking industry, investment world, there's a lot of money that can be made from so many different places. But a lot of these companies are starting to give back to the person, to the consumer, to the individual, versus putting all the pressure in like, well, how much money can we make? And, you know, get them to give us our money. So it's starting to shift a little bit in that industry. And so, yes, there is a little friction there with the financial industry. For example, you can open up a Capital One account too, and you don't have to open up with a specific amount of number. You know, they have less fees than the average bank. And so like with Robinhood saying that they won't have any fees and overdraft fees, people are like, well, how are y'all making money? Well, that's nice to ask them how they're making money. They have been doing pretty good off of the money that they've been making thus far with just the trading. Yes, in every business, there is losses that happen and that there's money that may be lost along the way, but overall, they are making money and their systems have been growing. So with Robinhood, for example, they have no overdraft fees. Well, typically every year, the banking industry, the traditional banking industry makes over $30 billion off of overdraft fees. That's right, you heard me. $30 billion off of people who don't have the money. So how does the banking industry make over $30 billion from overdraft fees? It's amazing. But there's less questions about that than it is about a company that comes along that's been doing pretty well and that says, hey, we're not going to give anybody overdraft fee. Now, that could be a little risky because, you know, people could definitely abuse it, but they may have a system in place for that where, you just might not be able to, make any more transactions or whatever it is, but they're not going to charge you if you happen to go into the negative. So, of course, people like myself who come from, the small beginnings, come from the hood, that grew up not knowing this stuff, whose family didn't know this stuff, so they couldn't teach it to them. Of course, me coming through the years like I have to learn about investing, to do great with investments and things like that. Of course, this is something that I definitely like to see because it takes it from being such a, takes banking from being such a, a hard thing for a lot of people to grasp, and where a lot of people have failed in their banking and finances, trying to budget and different things like that. And then it kind of gives back to the person that's trying to get ahead. So of course, me personally, I would love to see something like this come through, especially with all things and strings being attached as they should, legally, etc. So see, this is how things work in the industry. And as you're learning about finances and investing, you also have to be careful about the media and the way things you digest things as you hear them, because the media is anyone that knows anything about really investing, especially my generation, knows that the media, they are just pushing a lot of fear into the financial world. So if the stock market goes down, there's these big headlines that make it seem like, oh, you gotta run for the hills, and when this goes down, and they make things seem so drastic. And what it does is it holds people who are the average person who are just trying to do better in life. It makes them say, well, I'm gonna stay away from it. Meanwhile, those are areas where people are making so much money. They're being able to create so many streams of income from just being able to have good practices and just investing and things like that. Meanwhile, you have a considerable amount of people, majority of people who just don't fool with and don't understand. They only understand 401k, they only understand checking and savings, and then they think investing means you have to have a whole lot of money, which is totally false. So let's look at one of the big reasons also why the banking industry doesn't really care for that 3% is because, see, here, if you have $100 in Robinhood and you get 3%, you get $3 over the course of a year. I mean, it may not seem like much, but then look at how much your $100 that's sitting in your bank is getting right now over the course of a year. 1 penny. Okay, maybe 2 or 3 pennies. But that's not where the concern is, right? So from $100, you'll get $3 out of the year, right, in interest. So for $1,000, you'll get $30. 100,000, then you're going to get, or 10,000, I'm sorry, then you're going to get 300. All right, so you see how it starts to climb. So then 100,000, you'll get $3,000 every single year in interest off of $100,000. Here's where the banking industry does not want to see Robinhood succeed. Off of $1 million, you're getting $30,000 a year in interest. you can live off of $30,000 a year, depending on where you're from. Off of $10 million, you're getting $300,000 in interest. The banking industry does not want to see that, because if they know that can happen, then they're definitely going to lose a considerable amount of money from people who are, mostly much older, who have a lot of money sitting in the bank and is not making a lot of interest. However, the banking industry is definitely making money from the money that's sitting in their bank, in those bank accounts, and they're using that money to invest it and to, as part of it, to pay those big salaries to those CEOs making $10 and $15 and $20 million a year. So yes, there is a big uproar and a lot of conversation about Robinhood's banking and checking and what's going to happen, because it threatens those type of models. The banking industry, the history of the banking industry has always been to take the money that people are putting into their banks and not use it for their benefit, not to give them better interest rates, not to make them money, but to take that money and be able to make investments in things that they want to invest in or they see fit for. So, for example, if you know anything about history, then you may have heard some things about the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank was a bank for black people, a place where black people could put their money, for banking. This happened after the slavery time, a place where black people could put their money at, right? But then the problem was they weren't being able to really get their money out. They weren't really being able to get loans when they want to start businesses or buy houses from this very bank. However, the Freedmen's Bank actually was taking that money and doing whatever it is they want to do with it, and pretty much end up losing all of the money that all these people had put in trying to do better in life. Pretty much that's how the banking system is set up. So when you put money in, the banks are using your money. So if now less people are using these big banks that have been around for so long and going to something like Robinhood that wants to take the money and some of the things that they may have invested in, however the model is that they're setting up, and they want to give a considerable amount of money to the consumer and to the individual, you're definitely going to have, like I said, you're going to have some rifts in that particular industry. This starts something that we're seeing in the industry where you have more companies that are going to try to do the same exact thing. They're going to try to give more interest rates. And for people like us that are consumers, whose families aren't running these big corporations, who are doing better or want to do better, want to see their kids do better and stuff like that, then hey, listen, we welcome that competition. Yes, bring it so that some of these systems can start to change. So hey, Robinhood, if you can do this thing, hey, I'm definitely with it, and there's a lot of people that's with it. Well, hey guys, that's been my time. I hope this has been somewhat knowledge, based or whatever. You got something from it, just understanding like how things work in the industry, but also being able to know how to listen and do your own research and see how things work. So guys, thanks for learning with me. See you on the next video. Peace.